Hi guys, and welcome back to another Let's Build episode. So previously on this map we've worked our way up through little towns and villages such as Cliptoff, Riverside, and also the dwarven settlement of Dornburim. But now it's time to work on a slightly bigger project, and by that I mean a much bigger project. We're going to be doing the capital city of this island kingdom, Lordsport. Now, if you're new to the channel at all, we do a lot of tutorials and time lapses, so make sure to hit the subscribe button. Also, if you want to catch yourself up with this Let's Build series, I'll leave a link in the card above and also in the description. So what we're going to be doing in this episode is planning out the city of Lordsport. And the reason I wanted to do this as a separate episode is to kind of explain the process that I've got in my head of how I've planned it out, and to try and see how logical things kind of work, because what you'll find is if you just start building, you'll just start building everywhere and things won't quite make any sense. But if you actually do a little bit of planning, then at least you can kind of understand, you know, where you want certain areas to be, and you can then do zones, and you can split a very big project like this one up into smaller and more reasonable chunks. So with the map itself, I've actually used Dynmap or Dinmap to actually render this out. There's a load of other map mods that you can get for Minecraft as well. MCA Selector, for example, is actually an external tool as well that you can actually have almost like a chunk view, so a top-down view of your map. So if you've got a really large map, you don't want to use any mods, that's one way that you can go and grab it. So I've of course, grabbed this and got a nice big shot of this just to have a look at the actual area. So because it's been made in World Painter, it's of course a lot more natural looking, I guess, to what I actually really wanted. So I already kind of had a plan in my head when I was making the map. But effectively what we've got is a very large natural bay. So this is really key for the whole kind of reason that this kingdom kind of exists. The reason that this city is even here is because of this bay, because it's a natural harbour. So you imagine in storms, lots of ships can actually be coming up, and well, they need somewhere to actually kind of be safe so that they don't get destroyed by these big storms. So this is one of the reasons that we've actually got a big settlement here that makes a lot more sense. So that means we're going to get a lot of trade. It's also a really large base, so you can actually get quite a lot of ships in there. It's not small, it's not just for like fishing ships, but you can actually get some pretty large trade vessels in, so that all kind of makes sense. The other thing is we've got a couple smaller islands in there. We've got a really small island, and we've also got a big island. Now I'm already planning for the big island to actually have a castle here. So this is where the main castle is going to be. It is a huge area. It's absolutely massive. So there's going to be a very large castle. Probably what I'm going to end up having is obviously multi-tiered defense. But the reason that the castle is going to be there is to protect the entrance to that bay. So this is going to be quite a key, and this is another one of the reasons I wanted to do a bit of planning, is so that I know the reason why. So we've got a castle on its own island effectively. They'll be joined over onto the mainland, but that can then protect the bay. So any ships that are trying to come into, cause harm to the city, they're going to have to get through that castle first, which is going to be a really big fortification on there. So yeah, I might split this up into different tiers. It's also one of the highest land masses around, apart from the mountains, so it makes a lot more sense for it to actually be there. It's then at the heart of the city as well. Across the water from that, we have this kind of this point, I guess you could call it, a peninsula. So that I'm actually going to be calling East Point. So going with some really simple names, that's actually going to be one of the oldest parts of the city. And the reason it's going to be one of the oldest parts of the city is, well, for one, it's again behind in this kind of like natural bay, and it's kind of protected by that smaller arm, like island that we've actually got as well. The reason I'm going with the old town is because if I don't make it all the way through this project, if I actually still have the small little island there, which I'm going to end up building a castle on, and I'll talk about that in a second, and then I actually move on to just this area, and that's all I do, I can actually close it off. So again, splitting your project up into these little phases can be really useful. So you can see that point there where I can actually build a wall across, and I could then gate that up, and that would be it. I would be able to finish this project and be pretty happy that actually I have built a small settlement here. The only downside is that there's no fresh water source around there, so of course we've got that further inland, but ignore that for the time being. So you've got to be reasonable with Minecraft in particular, and really think about how things actually happen. So yeah, don't always tie yourself down, but do a bit of planning. So talking about that little island, what I've got in my mind for this, and the reason I'm thinking about the old town being East Point, is on this little island, this is where the first castle was made. So I'm planning on building a small castle slash fort, and that are actually going to be the next episode of this series is going to be building up that fort, because I want to kind of have that style kind of imbued in there. Also, I'm going to build a bridge from that to the East Point mainland as well, so I kind of want to make sure that when I build the roads, that all actually ties into that bridge rather than me trying to tie the bridge into the road. So kind of letting my build lead me rather than, again, doing like lots of this, so you can kind of like mix the planning with what you're actually building as well. So yeah, building that onto there. So there's going to be a smaller castle, and it's going to be the smallest out of all of the fortifications we're actually going to have around here. And it's also going to be the earliest castle that was built in Lordsport. So that's the other idea. So that's why it's going to be the smallest one. So it was the castle, it was the main residence of the Lord or King, who actually lords over Lordsport, not surprisingly, and eventually the kingdom. But then they kind of like moved. And what's going to happen in there, or on that little island, is when ships come into port, if they have guns on them, this is actually going to have a couple small docks where those bigger ships especially, so if you've got over X amount of guns, and you know, you can always sort that out in lore later on, these actually have to be unloaded as they come into the bay. So the idea being that there's actually going to be walls all the way around the outside of the settlement, because we have this bay on the inside and it's protected by what will be effectively 3 castles. We're going to have one on East Point's Peninsula, we also got the main castle, and also this smaller fort as well that we've got there. Because we've got all of these, it doesn't really make any sense to build walls on the inside of the bay, because it's pretty well protected, and the chance of actually being, you know, invaded is going to be very slim. So that also means that we can, you know, build, of course, lots and lots of piers and docks and warehouses along the waterfront. We can make it look really quite good with that, without having to worry about building these gigantic walls, and then building everything in front of those walls and having lots of gates going out to what is pretty much the waterfront. So yeah, that small little rock, I'm guessing we're going to be calling it, but if you guys have a good name for it, let me know, because that'd be really cool. So for the small castle, let me know a little name if you got this far so far. So yeah, that's going to be the plan for that kind of bit. So we're going to have this where ships are coming in, they take off their cannons. When they come back out, they get their cannons put back onto them. So there's going to be a couple halls in there, which used to be the royal halls but aren't anymore. So that's the idea of that. With East Point itself, we're going to have a couple docks as well. So we're going to have walls going all the way around the outside, facing out to the ocean. Then we're going to build up into this next section here. So this section, I haven't really got a plan for this one. I know that I've got it as that colour, but if you guys have an idea and you want to have some ideas of what we're going to do for this cyan kind of coloured section, then let me know, because that'd be really good. And it might be that we put in the cathedral here, and it might be we do the cathedral a little bit later on. So moving on to this next section, we've got this magenta kind of area here. So this is another point where I might put the cathedral. So at one of those points, there's definitely going to be a cathedral, because it's flatter land, and it's also big enough as well. So we've got to have those two things, so flat and big, pretty much, to build the cathedral. Because if we've got lots of hills, then I'm going to have to do a lot of terraforming in order to make it fit. And yeah, I think probably this magenta area is where I'm going to be building the cathedral. And of course, there's going to be lots of docks from both this magenta area and the cyan area. Again, we'll come up with districts names later on. And if you guys have any ideas, I've only had a couple, like the East Point kind of area, and of course the castle area. Not really really good there. We also need like merchant areas as well. There's going to be lots of merchant areas all the way through the city because of the access to the waterway, and therefore you're going to get a lot of different trade coming in at different docks, depending on how busy the entire city is. We then got this yellow section right next to the magenta one that then moves closer to where we've actually got the rivers. Now, of course, these rivers are totally unrealistic, but because we're working in Minecraft and with World Painter, I didn't want to do a ginormous map just for this small area. So I wanted to try and scale the island down a little bit, but still have these areas where it still looks realistic when you look at it on a more smaller level rather than on a larger level. So when you're looking at a larger level like this, it just looks like the river just suddenly expands massively. But yeah, we've got like 2 rivers just right next to this yellow section, and that 2 river area is going to be this nice blue section. So it could be that this is where we get most of the downtown area, but we can get some really nice looking bridges going over to that, into this, you know, smaller, almost like a river island type place that we've got there. And then just moving on to the side here, we've got this shipyard area. So the thoughts behind this is actually, this is going to be potentially not behind the walls. so this might actually be a little bit more open, or it might have a smaller set of walls around it. But when I was thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense that this kingdom would be quite a maritime nation, especially with all of their trade coming in. I would kind of expect them to also have a lot of ships, going out to also trade any goods that they have going outwards, and of course they would also have a pretty good navy, so we actually do need somewhere to build ships, and it makes a lot of sense to actually put it in this area. There's a natural small beach, so we can actually use that to launch the ships into the water, which is pretty cool. Then moving on, we also have this purple area, so this is going to be the Noble District. So there's a couple of reasons why I've gone for this area being the Noble District. One is that it's actually on higher cliffs, so it's already elevated, and you know what it's like with noble people. I always think that they're elevated above the peasants. So it kind of is a bit symbolic in that sense. They're going to be behind some walls. Also, they can be behind higher walls than the rest of the city. So because they've got the cliffs, and also because they're near the castle, it makes sense that this area would be pretty heavily protected. So they might even have a separation from the rest of the city. So they're going to have their own set of walls, more than likely, going all the way around that area, and it'll be bigger. It'll probably look a little bit more impressive as well from there. You can build some really nice big houses in that section, and then that section from the noble kind of district will then move on to the main castle. So that's the plan from what's in my head at the minute anyway, with all of that. Alright guys, so that is it for my initial plan of the city of Lordsport. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and if you do have any suggestions, make sure to put them in the comment section below. Also guys, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and also like this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.